It's time for another Out of Bounds Rewind with Bo Bounds on ESPN 105.9, The Zone.
They're in November, and they're having these big lulls in games that go all the way back to Memphis. So 9 straight possessions on offense. Tulu took, housed the kick. It's great. Young man's electric. Don't know why he's not getting more touches, but whatever. This is like an hour and a half, 2 quarters, a quarter and a half. Why the lulls? What's happening, Steve?
That's a great question. And Leach has brought that up multiple times in postgame and says, we've got to learn to stand prosperity. And there have been times I think State has gotten the lead and then gotten comfortable and, kind of basically gone to sleep. And that's got to change. In order for State to win and get to 8-4 this year, they're going to have to at some point put together 4 quarters of quality football. And they've been incapable of doing that so far. And I really think back, if we're being honest, under the Leach tenure, maybe that Missouri game in 2020 is probably the game where you have maybe had continuity on offense the entire day. Maybe go back to LSU, but even in that LSU ball game, people forget State turned it over 4 times there, and still won the game handily. And if you played clean that day, you might have an epic win where you have absolutely just wiped the field with LSU. And so, and to give credit too, to Auburn, those
Sure.
guys came out and played hard football, and those guys get preschool too. It's not like we're always, it's not the Globetrotters versus the Washington Generals out there. And so, you've got to be able to go out there and compete. And I give Cadillac and that staff a lot of credit. They put in some new offensive wrinkles and gave State some problem with it. But at the end of the day, when the game was on the line, State made the big kick to tie it and get it into overtime, and then outplayed them in overtime and ultimately won the football game.
Why do you think the offense is regressing? 24 straight. This has been for a few weeks now. Kentucky, Alabama, they actually moved it a little bit better, but between the 20s. But that 9 straight possessions without scoring, 6 coming out of halftime against a hodgepodge staff at Auburn, 24 straight passes. You're tipping off to SEC defensive linemen and especially edge rushers that they don't have to worry about the run. So it puts an enormous amount of pressure on your offensive tackles, Steve, and Will Rogers. What do you see with this offense?
Well, the first thing I'll say, I thought the offensive line played their worst game of the year against Auburn, and not just because of the sags. I think there were people in his face over and over and over again. And that's part of the issue. That's part of the issue. So, and I think you got to get some stuff kind of situated here in the next couple weeks, just because of the fact that Georgia defensive line is elite. State's played Alabama, LSU, Auburn. Those fronts are really, really good. This Georgia front is elite. And I think one of the things that we're seeing too is Mississippi State's kind of graduating a little bit offensively. You're not seeing drop 8 anymore. I think people have realized that Will Rogers will absolutely pick you apart if that's what you do. And so now people are trying to defend them differently, and now they'll have to adjust. Football is a game of adjustments. Now everybody's bringing more pressure, forcing him to get the ball out early. I thought Auburn did a great job kind of defending the flats and taking the check game away. So now, what's Leach do to counter that? Because this is a mimic league. Everybody, once they have some success, is going to mimic what everybody else does. And so you're not seeing drop 8. We're not hearing those complaints because they've addressed those. Well, now how do you handle this new fangled way that people are defending this Mississippi State offense? That's what has to be corrected here in the next 3 weeks.
Don't miss one moment of the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Weekdays, 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. on ESPN 105.9, The Zone.